Hi there, and welcome to the ALC Changemakers Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Sconyers. Most people assume that if they're in legal trouble, they have the right to an attorney. But that right only applies in criminal cases. In civil court, where someone could lose their home, their children, or their benefits, no such right exists. That gap is exactly where Legal Aid of Southeast and Central Ohio, known as LASCO, steps in. In this episode, I sit down with Kate McGarvey, LASCO's executive director, to talk about what it means to run a mission-driven law firm serving 36 counties across Ohio. Kate shares how her team has adapted in real time to shifting community needs, from building an immigration practice to responding to government benefit disruptions, and why that kind of agility requires deep roots in the communities they serve. In this episode, we'll discuss why civil legal aid is a calling and what makes it different from a traditional law practice, how LASCO pivoted its intake, teams, and services to match a rapidly changing landscape, the staggering impact of having counsel. People represented in eviction cases are 92% less likely to face disruptive displacement. What LASCO is building next, county-level needs assessments, and a closer collaboration with a sister organization. How you can get informed, get involved, or give to support access to justice in Ohio. Whether you're in the legal field, the nonprofit world, or simply a community member who wants to understand the justice gap, this conversation will change how you think about who has access to the law and who doesn't. Let's dive in. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the ALC Changemakers Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Sconyers. And today I'm here with Kate McGarvey. Hi, Kate.
Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So for listeners, Kate and I worked together for a few years. Really, I'd say during the COVID era, I would say 2021, working with her team, a lot of skill building work, DEI work over the years. And I got to learn the amazing work they do at LASCO. So Kate, welcome to the podcast and tell us a bit about you and your leadership journey.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. Thanks again so much for having me. It's nice to see you. I've always appreciated our time together. So as you mentioned, I'm the executive director of LASCO, or Legal Aid of Southeast and Central Ohio, as it is fully known. So we are a nonprofit law firm that provides civil legal aid and advocacy to overcome unfairness and injustice, to reduce poverty and increase opportunity. So we provide free non-criminal help in 36 counties in Ohio, and that's with the whole range of civil legal issues, from foreclosures to bankruptcies to evictions, domestic violence, education, re-entry, the whole host of things on the civil side. I've been in this role now for about 7 years, but I've been with Legal Aid for many years, starting out as a law clerk, going to a staff attorney, managing attorney, it's that direction. So I have a long history with Legal Aid.
Yeah, thank you for that, Kate. And for listeners, what I was so struck by was the work that you do at LASCO. So for listeners, a bit about my background and history. At ALC, we do work with legal services, but it's so different than like big law, like the big law firms you see on Suits or something like that. Like it's just totally different. And what I appreciate is there's so much attention and care that your team has about the work. There's such values that they have with the clients and the work that you do. It really, I don't know, it just feels like a labor of love or a passion for people to be in legal services. Can you talk about the uniqueness of what makes legal services what it is and how it's so different than maybe other legal entities that are out there?
Yeah, I think it is very different. And thank you for noticing that. I think for many of us, it is a calling. And so it is different than many of the law firms. And it is a really giving back and being of service to individuals who are not otherwise able to get access to justice. And so both for our clients, for our communities, and really being thoughtful and intentional in how we serve them, both in terms of the work that we do, but individually, how we interact with our clients and communities are things that we are very purposeful about. I think everyone who is here because they care about our mission, and that is from the person who is at the reception desk to the staff attorney to somebody who's in a more senior leadership position, is hard work. I don't think that it's something that is easy to do without that purpose and calling. And so it is very mission driven.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And I think that's so true for some of the groups we work with at ALC. It's purpose driven. It's a calling for people. No one's getting rich.
Right. Right.
Working in these spaces, right? So there's got to be something that really pulls you. Something that really struck me in our work with you was the ways in which your team is agile to the times. So when we start review was COVID, and your team was so agile in terms of the way that you met client needs. Can you speak to what your team is doing now, just given the greater conditions, and how are you working through just the challenges of the moment we're living in?
So we do try to be flexible, both in terms of how and where we're providing services, but also the type of services that we provide. And we do the standard strategic planning and needs assessment every few years, but we also very regularly review our internal data, work with community partners to see what those needs are. And so, for example, with the government shutdown and food stamps, we have changed our intake eligibility so that things are getting through that might not have before, but we know there's changes and we know we need to be responsive to that. Meeting with different partners in the community because it has just shifted so quickly. And then looking at what those advocacy opportunities are. And so you can see this, whether it's with our immigration team and creating that team a few years ago, the demographics in Ohio, and particularly Central Ohio, changed. Some of our community economic development work, which is newer, but has really helped support some of our communities and wealth building. And so when we look back, many of our teams do look different than they looked 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It's a broad mission. And so we do our best to adjust with the resources that we have to best meet the needs of the present moment.
Yeah. And I just want to hat tip to that, right? Because that's a skill in of itself to have a large team as yours and be able just to pivot and to be agile. It was also clear to me that the team would just really be in deep relationship, right? So it'd be with community partners, community members, and clients. And that was something that I thought was also just really intentional and really special. I'm super curious because I know you all called us, it was like post George Floyd, right? And I'm just curious for listeners, what was the impetus to say, okay, we need support in this way, and how that support impacted your team?
I think there were a number of different things. And so we are now an officially merged program, but we have been an affiliated program for some time. And so there's been this gradual process of bringing together multiple different programs, as well as 8 offices in 36 counties. There were also leadership changes. So I mentioned I've been in this role for about 7 years. We also had a lot of retirements and change in the rest of our senior leadership and a lot of change in our middle management as well, because of just some of that natural process. And so we were having new folks who we knew we had both some needs in terms of training, but also some opportunity in terms of where we were headed. I think there were probably some cultural things that we wanted to adjust just based on the times and wanting to make sure that we were responsive to that for our staff and for our communities. And so I had gotten, I think, your name as a referral. And so reached out and wanted to see how you all could help us support us in that process. And it was really helpful. I think from everything from conversations with me to small group sessions with our managers, which they really, really appreciated that level of support, whether it was working through individual issues that arose or collectively thinking about what is really the culture that we want for the organization and how do we intentionally get there, which is something that is hard to prioritize when you have clients calling and emergent needs, but it really gave us some space and some leadership to work in that direction.
Yeah, thank you for that. And your team was just so great to work with. I think people just came with curiosity to the experiences and did their best to apply the learning, the coaching that we provided in our time with you. So I'm curious, what do things look like today? You've got this agility, you're doing this adaptability. What are some of like the big moves or changes you're making? And what are you seeing on the horizon for LASCO and the work that you're doing?
Yeah. So I think there's a few things coming up. So we have a sister program in the Ohio Poverty Law Center that we are looking at structurally. How do we work together? And what does that relationship look like? So how do we best support each other? What should that look like moving forward in a landscape where there are limited funding, but a lot of need? So that is one particular thing. We are also looking at doing a needs assessment in a different way than we've done before. So we have 36 counties, and Franklin County looks very different than Benton County does.
Yeah.
And so we have applied for some additional funding to really do county-based work so that we are sure that we're responding to all of the service area in the way that we should.
Yeah.
And so that will probably take up the next year, but hopefully it will put us in a very good spot for our next strategic planning. We do expect that demand is going to continue to rise. We only meet a very small percentage of the demand overall generally because of limited staffing.
Yeah.
But we certainly expect that the phone calls and eviction numbers will continue to rise over the next year.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's so interesting is the work that you do is so needed, right? And we're living in a time for listeners recording this during a government shutdown. And there's like the SNAP funds, right? And all these things are happening. And this impacts LASCO's clients. These are your people who need these services. So yeah, just really hearing you in terms of the things that you need to do.
Yeah. Well, and just to level set for everyone, I think there's oftentimes confusions about what is available to people and what is not. And so in the criminal context, you do have a right to an attorney. In a civil context, you do not. And so if you are losing your home, if you are losing your children, if you have lost your food stamps or your Medicaid, you do not have a right to an attorney under those situations. And so we do our best to fill in every place we can, because we know that the outcomes are dramatically different. And in eviction, for example, if you're represented by an attorney, you're 92% more likely to have not to have a disruptive displacement. So that's such a huge difference. And you can see that same difference, whether it's on the consumer side, the domestic side. It just really makes a big impact. So there is some movement towards right to cancel in different areas, but we are certainly not there now. And a lot of people don't understand what their rights are until they get in the situation where they need someone.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm wondering, can you speak a little bit to listeners, like for folks who might not know a lot about legal aid or LASCO, like what's some education people can get to just better understand that need, that right to counsel? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have some information on our website, particularly around eviction, and a study that we did in Franklin County, looking at the impacts of having counsel in those cases. But the Legal Services Corporation, which is one of our federal funders, has also done a lot of work in this area in terms of the justice gap. And so looking at Legal Services Corporation's website, that's fairly prominently focused on there. And so that would be another resource for folks to look at.
Great. As we wind down our time together, Kate, I'm just curious, what are some, factoids or maybe any calls to action you have for our listeners if they want to be engaged with you or just some information to know about LASCO?
Yeah. So calls to action, one of mine is to understand more about this issue. I think that access to justice affects everyone, but oftentimes we think of it as just a lawyer problem. It is not just a lawyer problem. Is it a problem for everyone who gets a notice from a court or has a dispute with the IRS or some other adverse action that has a legal remedy and they're not able to get counsel? So I think the first thing is being better informed, and whether that's by looking at our website, whether that's looking at the Legal Services Corporation website, just to really better understand that, but also to understand what resources are available so that if you yourself have an issue or if you have a friend or family member who's having an issue, that they know that they can call us and we will do our best to help where we can. So the first is really just learning more, sharing the resources. We've got a newsletter that we send out each month. There's ways in which you can just get better informed, and we're happy to share more of that information. The other thing I would say is get involved. So while our lawyers, we have volunteers who have done everything in the world. So we have high school students, we have younger students than that, but we have volunteers who are retired, who are bankers, who are the whole sort of spectrum. If you're interested in the issue, there is a place in which we can get you involved. And we do clinics for reentry where someone will walk in at the beginning of the morning and they walk out with their records sealed. And so you really have the opportunity to be involved in something where you can make a difference, and you can, in some of those situations, see the difference in a pretty short period of time. So getting informed, getting involved. And then, of course, my development director would be upset if I didn't say it. You can't get involved. There's also always the opportunity to donate, because we do help only a small percentage of people who are eligible. We expect that funding is going to get tighter as we go into these next couple of years. And so if you are in a position where you are able to donate, we certainly welcome donations. And that is a part of how we provide these services.
Of course. Love all that, Kate. Where can people find you and LASCO to learn more?
Yeah. So LASCO.org. So that's LASCO.org is the website, probably the best starting point. We have our social media links on there, so you can find those there. We do have 8 offices. Those are also on that website, so you can see where our physical locations are. And then we do rotating services through all of the other counties as well.
Well, wonderful. Well, this has been such a great conversation, Kate. We'll have to have you back to learn even more about what you all are up to. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Of course. And for listeners to learn more, you can always go to jennifersconyers.com. Until next time. Thank you so much for joining us on the ALC Changemakers Podcast. If you found today's conversation inspiring or helpful, we'd love it if you'd subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps other changemakers like you find our show. At Abundance Leadership Consulting, we believe in building sustainable leadership and connected communities through justice, courage, and care. And that mission extends beyond individual leaders. It shapes the way we guide entire organizations through some of their bigger decisions. If your nonprofit is exploring a merger or acquisition, or even just starting to wonder if it might be on the right path, ALC is here to help you navigate that journey with integrity. Our signature fabric approach, fairness-centered accountability through belonging, relationships, inclusion, and collaboration, is a multi-phase process designed specifically for nonprofit organizations. Whether you're brand new to the idea of mergers and acquisitions, or you've been through the process before, we meet you where you are. You can learn more and book a complimentary fabric discovery call at nonprofit-ma.com. For leadership resources, tools, and to connect with our broader community, visit jennifersconyers.com. Until next time, keep leading with purpose, keep building relationships that matter, and keep creating change one bold step at a time.